I still remember the moment the world shifted beneath my feet. The church doors had barely closed behind me when I realized something was terribly, painfully wrong. My husband's family, those people I had cooked for, prayed with, cried with, walked right past me as if I were a shadow clinging to the cold stone walls. Not one of them met my eyes. Not one whispered, "Sorry for your loss." Not one reached for my trembling hands. It was as though I had died right alongside my husband. Thank you for listening, my dear. Before I continue, comment where you're watching from so I know how far my story travels. And if you enjoy true stories of quiet strength, make sure to like and subscribe. For a moment, I stood there in the drizzle, letting the soft rain roll across my black veil like tiny beads of ice. My breath caught in my throat. The sky was a heavy gray blanket, pressed low as though it was grieving with me. The scent of wet soil and lilies filled the air. Gordon always hated lilies. He used to say they smelled too much like funerals. Now they surrounded him anyway. A small shiver passed through me, and I tightened my shawl around my shoulders. The fabric was thin, old, smelling faintly of lavender from the sachets I kept in my dresser. Gordon used to tease me about that, said the whole house smelled like a grandma's purse. Well, now I was just a grandma alone. Before I continue, comment your country so I know how far my story travels. I took one slow step toward his casket, unable to ignore that hollow thump inside my chest. My heart wasn't beating. It was protesting the cold way his family formed a tight circle near the priest, whispering among themselves, throwing occasional sideways glances at me, as if I didn't belong there, as if I hadn't spent 38 years standing beside that man through joy and sickness and loss and growth, as if I weren't his wife. My fingers trembled against the polished coffin wood, dark mahogany, smooth as river stones. My reflection stared back, small and bent under the weight of grief. I leaned forward, whispering softly so the wind could steal my words. "I'm right here, Gordon. I'm still here." My voice cracked on the last syllable. Behind me, I heard the shuffle of dress shoes on wet concrete. A hushed voice, his sister Louise, murmured sharply, "Don't look at her. She made her choices." My blood chilled. Made my choices? What choices? I blinked, my breath fogging the cold air. Louise stepped closer to the others, her thick black coat swaying around her ankles, her bright red lipstick too bold for a funeral morning. Her eyes were icy, devoid of the sisterly warmth she used to give me. "Honestly," she whispered to the man beside her, "after what she did, she has the nerve to show up." My heart lurched. What I did? What lies did they tell themselves this time? Before I could gather the courage to speak, another voice, Gordon's eldest brother, Charles, added, "Let the lawyer handle it. We'll get what we need soon enough." Something inside me twisted. Handle what? What were they waiting for? My hand pressed against my stomach as a wave of nausea rose. The sky seemed darker suddenly, the wind colder, the air sharper against my cheeks. Even the soft patter of rain faded as the preacher began the closing prayer. "Lord, for as much as it hath pleased thee." My mind drifted. For months before his death, Gordon had been distant, quiet, thoughtful. He would sit alone on the porch at dusk, watching the horizon with a strange look in his eyes. Sometimes his fingers would tap against the wooden railing as though counting something, time maybe, or memories. One night I had asked him, "What's on your mind, love?" He just smiled faintly and kissed my forehead, "Making sure you're taken care of." The memory struck me now like a gust of warm wind in the cold cemetery air. I closed my eyes, letting the words settle on my soul like dust on an old photo frame. Taken care of. Gordon had never let his family bully me, not once. But now he was gone, and their true faces were showing like cracks in a broken mirror. Just as the priest lifted the final blessing, Sable, my husband's niece, walked past me deliberately. Her heels sank into the wet ground, leaving deep marks like scars. She didn't even slow down. "Come on, everyone," she called softly to the others. "Let's head inside. The lawyer is ready." The lawyer. My breath caught. Gordon's family had been buzzing about this lawyer for days now, whispering behind closed doors, moving with urgency they barely tried to hide. They acted as if they knew something I didn't. And maybe they did. I took one last look at the casket. A white rose lay in the center. I reached out, brushing its soft petals with my thumb. The scent, faint, sweet, made my heart ache. It should have been softer. His last days, I whispered. It should have been warmer. I lifted my skirt slightly, careful not to drag the hem through the mud, and followed the others toward the church hall. The moment I stepped inside, heat blanketed my shoulders, but the warmth did nothing to soften the cold glances thrown my way. Louise's husband blocked my path with his tall frame. His suit smelled faintly of cigars and expensive aftershave. Gordon hated that scent, too. "You can wait over there," he said, pointing toward a lonely metal chair near the exit. I blinked slowly. "I'm his wife," I murmured. "I should be present." He shrugged, not even hiding the disdain in his eyes. "Yes. Well, things are different now." Different. What a cruel little word. As I walked toward the chair, I felt every eye in that room slicing into me like thin knives. Their whispers scratched at my ears. "She won't get anything?" Gordon wasn't a fool. "She'll be out of the house by next month." Serves her right. Serves me right? My chest tightened. The metal chair was cold beneath me as I sat. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed loudly, casting a pale yellow glow across the polished floor. My reflection shimmered faintly in it, small, tired, shaking. My wedding ring felt heavy on my finger. I twisted it gently, a nervous habit Gordon always found amusing. Then the door opened. Everyone straightened. The lawyer, a tall man with silver-rimmed glasses and a folder tucked beneath his arm, stepped forward. His gaze brushed past the family, then landed on me. His expression softened, subtly, quietly, but enough for me to notice. "Mrs. Calder?" he said gently. I swallowed, nodding once. He cleared his throat and turned to the crowd. Gordon left a final letter. He requested it be read aloud today, in the presence of everyone. The room erupted in murmurs. "A letter? From Gordon?" Louise snapped. "To whom is it addressed?" The lawyer lifted the sealed envelope and read the name. "To my beloved wife." Husband's family whispered sharply, eyes darting toward me with thinly veiled annoyance. Charles scoffed. "Whatever it is, we all know how Gordon was. Soft-hearted. Let's not drag this out." The lawyer ignored him. Instead, he walked directly toward me. The envelope trembled slightly in his hand. Whether from emotion or the weight of what was inside, I wasn't sure. "Mrs. Calder," he said softly, "your husband's last words are meant for you." My throat tightened. My fingers shook as I reached out. Every breath in the room seemed to hush. Every eye narrowed. Every heart waited. And then the lawyer opened the envelope. He unfolded the letter with quiet reverence. And in that moment, just before he began reading, I felt something shift in my soul. Hope, fear, recognition. As if Gordon's voice itself was rising through the silence. "My love, if they are hearing this, then you already know the truth." The lawyer's lips parted to speak, but before the words left his mouth, Louise gasped. "What truth?" she snapped. "What did she do?" Her accusation sliced through the room like lightning. My heart slammed against my ribs. "What is she talking about?" The lawyer cleared his throat again, this time louder, firmer, and with every eye locked on him, he began to read. The lawyer's voice trembled slightly as he unfolded Gordon's letter, the paper crackling in the silent church hall. My hands were clenched in my lap, knuckles pale under the dim fluorescent lights. Everyone leaned in, not out of love, not out of mourning, but hunger. Hunger for what Gordon had left behind. Louise whispered harshly, "This should be handled privately. We don't need drama." The lawyer ignored her. He adjusted his glasses, took a slow breath, and began reading. "To my beloved wife, if this letter is being read aloud today, then it means the good Lord has already called me home. I pray he gave you the strength to endure the sight of my coffin lowered into the earth. I pray he held your hand when I could not." My breath faltered. A sharp hiss rippled through the family. "Oh, please," Charles muttered. "Get on with it," the lawyer continued. "I need you to know something before anything else. I have not forgotten what they did to you." The room turned to stone. My heart dropped into my stomach. Louise's eyebrows shot up. "What we did?" For years, I had carried the quiet of my marriage like a folded blanket, soft, worn, familiar, but there had always been secrets under that quiet. Gordon had seen things, felt things even I didn't know he noticed. The lawyer's voice deepened as he continued. "I saw how they treated you when I fell ill, the whispers, the accusations, the blame they put on you, and the cruelty they hid behind concern. You never defended yourself, my love, and that hurt me more than the sickness." My throat tightened. I had tried to forget those months, the way Louise suggested I wasn't feeding him the right foods, the way Charles asked if I had looked into all treatment options or just the cheap ones, the way Sable whispered loudly in the hallway. If she hadn't stressed him so much, he'd still be stronger. I had swallowed all of it. For Gordon. For peace. but hearing him acknowledge it now felt like someone finally lifting a boulder off my chest. Yet his family didn't soften. They hardened. "That's not true," Louise snapped. "We always supported—" The lawyer raised one hand. "If I may continue—" She huffed, crossing her arms. He read on. "I know my family well. I know their hearts, their greed, their sense of entitlement, and I know what will happen the moment my casket closes." The family exchanged uneasy glances. The rain outside hammered harder against the stained glass windows, as if punctuating his words. "They will circle you like wolves, believing everything that was mine is theirs by birthright. They will forget my vows to you. They will forget the promises I made every morning you woke beside me. But I have not forgotten." A chill swept through the room. I felt Louise's glare burning into the side of my face. "Skip to the part that matters," she snapped. "What did he leave us?" The lawyer lowered the paper slowly. "Mrs. Louise, if you interrupt again, I'll have to pause until the room is orderly." She fell silent, though her lips curled like a scolded child. He continued, "My wife sacrificed more for me than any of you ever did. She stood by me when others only visited when it was convenient. She held my hand when I was afraid. She wiped my tears when I thought I was dying, and she remained gentle even when she was treated with bitterness." My vision blurred. Tears welled, hot and heavy. I didn't expect him to defend me from the grave. I didn't expect him to see so much, feel so much. I didn't expect to be believed. Charles muttered under his breath, "This is sentimental nonsense." But the lawyer wasn't done. In fact, he was only beginning. The letter continued. "If you are listening to this, you should also know. She kept a secret from me, a secret I asked her to carry so my final years could be peaceful. But since I am gone, the truth must come out." My breath froze. A secret? That I kept? My heart pounded against my ribs as if trying to escape. Louise's eyes widened like she'd struck gold. There it is. I knew she was hiding something. "What secret?" Sable asked sharply. Nathan bit his lip, glancing nervously between me and the lawyer. The lawyer cleared his throat, but before he could continue reading, the heavy oak door creaked open. Everyone turned. In walked a man in a black suit, short graying hair, a stern face, and a leather briefcase. His shoes clicked sharply against the church tiles. The lawyer nodded respectfully. "Ah, good. Perfect timing." Sable frowned. "Who is that?" The newcomer looked directly at me. Not at the family, not at the lawyer, just me. And then he bowed his head gently in greeting. "Mrs. Calder." I blinked. "Yes." The lawyer said, "Everyone, this is Mr. Fallon, Gordon's personal financial attorney." Charles groaned loudly. "Another lawyer? Gordon was never organized enough for that." Mr. Fallon arched a brow. "With all due respect, Mr. Charles, your brother was far more organized than any of you realized." Sable muttered something like, "This is ridiculous." Mr. Fallon approached the table, setting down a thick file, thicker than any I had ever seen in all our years of taxes, mortgages, and paperwork. When he unlatched it, a faint metallic click echoed through the hall. Gordon's family leaned forward, hungry. I sat still, frozen. Mr. Fallon spoke. "Before we continue reading the letter, I need to confirm something with Mrs. Calder." His eyes softened. "Ma'am, did your husband ask you not to mention the accounts?" "The accounts?" My pulse skipped. Memories flashed through my mind. Nights, Gordon sat at the table sorting papers. Mornings, he'd give me sealed envelopes and say, "Just tuck this away, sweetheart." Times he told me, "Don't bother with these, I'll explain them later, when it's time." He had asked me not to mention them, not to burden myself, not to involve the family. My hands trembled in my lap. I nodded slowly. "Yes, he did." A gasp rippled across the family. Louise shot to her feet. "Accounts? What accounts?" Charles sputtered. "She must be lying. She never worked. She wouldn't know how to manage money." I flinched as if struck. Mr. Fallon remained calm. He turned to the family and said clearly, "Gordon Calder had 7 accounts." The room erupted. 7? "That's impossible. He was broke." "Where are they? How much?" Mr. Fallon raised a hand. The room quieted instantly. No one but his wife was supposed to know until this moment. Silence. Then he pulled out a small navy blue binder. He placed it gently before me. The air thickened. The light above flickered. The rain outside seemed to pause to listen. "This," he said, tapping the binder lightly, "is everything Gordon left behind." The family surged forward like vultures descending. "Open it! What's inside? It better not be all in her name." But the lawyer held up the letter again, commanding silence. "We must finish the letter before disclosing anything further." Louise slumped back into her seat, shaking with irritation. The air hummed with tension. The lawyer cleared his throat. and continued reading. My love, the truth is, I set things aside to protect you. Money they never knew of, properties they assumed I sold, and accounts that have grown over the years. Charles's face went stiff. Properties? He echoed. Sable narrowed her eyes. What else did he hide from us? Nathan turned pale, but the lawyer read on. I did not trust my family to care for you once I was gone, and I was right. Greed reveals itself faster than grief. The room turned ice cold. Gordon's family stared at me with venom now, not disbelief. Because they knew what was coming. The lawyer lifted the final line of that section. This is why everything I built, everything I saved, everything I invested, is for her, my wife, and no one else. The hall exploded. What? She doesn't deserve it. She manipulated him. She's lying. She poisoned him against us. I shrank back in my chair as the voices rose like thunder. Accusing, spitting, tearing. Louise lunged toward me, pointing one trembling finger. You knew! You tricked him into it! The room shook with fury. My heart raced, breath quickening, but Mr. Fallon stepped between us, his tall frame protective, immovable. That will be quite enough, he said sternly. Louise's face twisted with rage. The lawyer raised the letter again and said firmly, I am not yet finished. Slowly, painfully, the room fell quiet. The lawyer's voice dropped to a solemn whisper. What comes next is the final truth he wanted revealed. My hands shook. My body tensed. Everyone leaned forward. The lawyer's eyes flicked to me, soft, almost apologetic. Then he read, They think you don't know why they ignored you today. They think you are unaware of the rumors they spread. But I know the truth, and so will you when they hear the next part. A stunned hush fell. A chill climbed my spine. Rumors? Truth? Louise swallowed hard. What did he mean by that? The lawyer lowered the paper slowly, deliberately, then turned to the final page, and just as he lifted it, the church lights flickered. My heart pounded like thunder. Gordon's final revelation was about to fall. The fluorescent lights blinked twice, humming like bees trapped in glass. Every head jerked upward. Louise's breath hitched, and Sable clutched her handbag like a lifeline. Even the lawyer's fingers tightened on the edges of the paper. Rain rattled against the windows in long, cold streaks, as if the sky itself leaned in to listen. Then the lights steadied, but my heartbeat did not. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. His voice softened into a tremble, not of fear, but of gravity. Mrs. Calder, this next part was written for you, but your husband insisted it be read in front of everyone. My fingers curled around the thin metal chair. My nails pressed into my palms until they stung. I didn't lift my head. I could feel the family's stares like cold needles in my scalp. Get on with it, Charles growled. The lawyer inhaled deeply and began. My love, before my illness grew worse, you begged me to correct my family. You begged me to defend you, to stop the whispers, to stop the lies. A few family members shifted uncomfortably. Whispers, lies, my throat tightened. The lawyer continued. But I asked you to stay silent because there was something you didn't know. Something they've been hiding from you. Something they told each other after every family gathering, after every holiday, after every visit. A wave of tension pulsed across the room. Louise stiffened. Charles swallowed hard. Sable blinked rapidly, her mascara smudging from the humidity. The lawyer paused. You don't have to read this, I whispered through trembling lips. He looked at me with gentle eyes. He wanted you to hear it. He turned back to the letter. They blamed you for my illness, for my pain, for my distance, and even for my death. The room erupted. That's nonsense. She did stress him. She isolated him. I recoiled, physically recoiled, as though their words slapped me. My breath came short and thin. The lawyer held up a firm hand. Please, this is Gordon's voice, not an argument. He continued reading. They told themselves and each other that you weakened me, that you drained me, that you were responsible for every ache in my body and every tear in my eyes. Louise shot to her feet. That's not true, she snapped. We were concerned for him. Mr. Fallon stepped forward, blocking her path. Sit down. The authority in his voice startled everyone. Louise sank back into her chair, her lips trembling. The lawyer continued. My love, they said you were controlling. They said you kept me away from them. They said you poisoned my mind. They said you pushed me into an early grave. The paper crinkled slightly as the lawyer's hands tightened. My own chest constricted so sharply I tasted metal at the back of my tongue. Sable leaned forward, eyes bright and vindictive. Well, she did isolate him. I whipped my head toward her. How could you say that? I cared for him every day. Louise smirked. You stopped him from going to gatherings. He was too weak, I cried. He could barely walk some days. Charles shrugged, smug. That's what we said. You weakened him. My vision blurred, but the lawyer kept reading, his voice rising with quiet power. They blamed you for things you didn't do, things they never saw, things they invented so they wouldn't have to face their own absence. Silence swept the room. For once, not even Louise had words. I saw them watch you cook for me, clean for me, hold me when the doctors gave bad news, and instead of gratitude, they whispered that you were doing it for money. Sable's face went white. Mr. Fallon's jaw clenched. And me? I clasped my shawl tighter around myself like it was the only shield I had left. The lawyer took a slow breath. So I kept the truth from you. I didn't tell you what they said. I didn't tell you what they accused you of, because you were already carrying enough on your shoulders. My eyes brimmed with tears, thick, hot, heavy. Gordon had known. He had known everything. And he had carried it. Alone. The lawyer's voice lowered, softer than a whisper. My final letter is not to hurt you, but to free you. Free me. The words hit like a warm light inside the darkest room of my soul. But then the lawyer inhaled sharply. There's one more section, he murmured. Sable looked like she'd been punched. Louise sat perfectly still, her fingers clenching her lace gloves. Charles rubbed the back of his neck, face pale as chalk. Go on, Nathan whispered. But the lawyer wasn't looking at him. He was looking at me. Mrs. Calder? This part concerns the secret your husband mentioned earlier. I swallowed hard. My hands trembled. The binder on the table, the navy one, seemed to glow under the lights like it held a heartbeat of its own. Everyone leaned forward. The lawyer continued. My love, the truth is this. You didn't merely keep my account secret. You protected me from something darker, something I never told you, because I knew it would break your heart. My pulse pounded in my ears. I didn't retire because I was tired. I retired because someone was stealing from me. The family gasped. Louise sputtered. Stealing? Who? But the lawyer wasn't finished. Money went missing from my business accounts. Funds slipped from the trust, and someone forged my signature more than once. A thick, suffocating tension filled the room. I didn't tell you because you would have blamed yourself, and I couldn't bear that. My back straightened slowly. Who would steal from him? I looked around. Their faces, once familiar, now looked like masks, cold, stiff, hiding too much. The lawyer read. I investigated quietly. Quietly because I knew my own blood would deny it. Quietly because I knew you would try to protect them. But the truth could not be hidden forever. Louise's breathing quickened. Sable whispered, he's lying. He must be... Charles stared at his shoes. Nathan looked sick. The lawyer's next words came out heavy as wet earth. I found the person responsible, and though it broke me, I left evidence behind in case something happened to me before I could confront them. Sable clapped her hand over her mouth. Louise gripped the pew so tight her knuckles whitened. I felt my heart inching upward into my throat. And now, since they are surely in this room, it is time for them to hear what they did. A stunned silence froze the air. My breath came shallow, shaky, cold. The family leaned in, horrified. The lawyer turned the page. His eyes widened slightly, and then he read the name. The name that made the entire hall gasp. The person who stole from me was... He paused. His eyes flicked to me, then to the family. Then back to the letter. My heart hammered so loudly I thought the room would hear it. Everyone held their breath, and then he spoke the name Gordon had written with his final strength, the name that sliced the air clean in half. Louise! The world went silent. Not quiet. Silent. Louise's knees buckled. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. That's not... No! She screamed, her voice cracking from the shock. I would never... But no one rushed to comfort her. Everyone stared. Mr. Fallon's eyes narrowed like he was waiting for her to deny it. Nathan's jaw dropped. Sable's mouth hung open. Charles leaned away from her. And me? I just sat there, frozen, shattered, yet strangely not surprised. The lawyer continued. Louise stole money from my accounts. She forged my name. She moved funds into an account she thought I couldn't trace, and when I confronted her, she threatened to ruin my marriage. All eyes snapped to her. She shook her head violently. He's lying! She is the liar! She shrieked, pointing at me with a trembling hand. She told him lies about us. The the lawyer spoke calmly. Gordon provided documentation, bank statements, signatures, transcripts of messages, all in this binder. Louise lunged toward the table. Lies! Mr. Fallon intercepted her with a single step, blocking her path. Sit down! She froze, her chest heaving. Gordon wouldn't. He couldn't. How could he betray me like that? She whispered. But her voice didn't sound shocked anymore. It sounded caught. The lawyer's voice softened. There is more. Louise shook her head violently. No, please. But the letter demanded to be heard, and the lawyer obeyed it. She blamed my wife for every missing cent. She whispered that my wife was stealing from me. She turned my own blood against the woman I loved, but I knew the truth. I always knew. My breath escaped me in a single shaky exhale. Louise collapsed into her seat, trembling uncontrollably. The room felt like it had no air left, and the lawyer closed the letter with a soft thud. There is still one final revelation, he murmured. But Mr. Fallon must speak first. My pulse thrashed wildly. Final? Mr. Fallon stepped forward, opening the navy binder. He looked directly into my eyes. Mrs. Calder, everything your husband left behind is documented in here. But before I explain what you inherited, I must tell you what he kept hidden. The family leaned in with desperate eyes. I held my breath, and Mr. Fallon said, There is something your husband bought in secret, something none of them know about, something that changes everything. I gripped the sides of my chair. What did Gordon buy? Mr. Fallon opened the binder, and my life tilted sideways. When Mr. Fallon opened that navy binder, the metal rings gave a soft click, a sound so sharp in the quiet room that several people flinched. The family leaned forward instinctively, predators drawn to a scent. I shrank back, my shawl trembling around my arms. The binder's pages were thick, crisp, and neatly tabbed, blue, gold, red, black. Gordon had always been meticulous, but he had never shown this level of secrecy. Mr. Rear Fallon turned to the first section, his fingers steady as stone. Mrs. Calder, he said softly, your husband didn't just save money. He didn't just keep accounts. He prepared for years. The rain outside softened to a whisper, like even the storm was holding its breath. What did he prepare? I asked, my voice a thread. Mr. Fallon exhaled slowly. Your future. A murmur rippled through the room. Sable scoffed. Oh, please, what future? She's nearly 70. Nathan shot her a stunned look, whispering, Sable, stop. But she folded her arms, lips tight, eyes darting around in frantic calculation. Mr. Fallon continued, turning to a page marked with gold. Your husband made several large investments in the last decade, quietly, carefully, profitably. Louise, still as pale as a ghost, hissed, He didn't have that much money, Mr. Fallon raised a brow. Ma'am, you stole from his small business accounts, not the portfolios. Gasps scattered like pebbles across a pond. Louise broke into sobs, loud, messy, cracking sobs. I didn't know. I only took what he owed me. No one comforted her, not even her husband. Mr. Fallon turned the page again. I'll start with the smallest, he said. He pointed to a list of numbers, cold, clean, impossible numbers. Account 1, $142,000. Account 2, $309,000. Account 3, $516,000. The room inhaled collectively. Account 4, $1.1 million. Someone choked. Account 5, $2.7 million. Louise looked ready to faint. Account 6, $4.2 million. Sable grabbed the pew for balance. Account 7. Mr. Fallon paused, pressing his lips together in a line. $7.9 million. Silence. Real silence. Not a breath. Not a whisper, nothing. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the trembling air between all of us. My hand flew to my mouth. Gordon had all that? My voice cracked. But he never told me. Mr. Fallon smiled gently, a sad smile, like a man who knew too many end-of-life secrets. He wanted to tell you, but he was afraid his family would intervene. He didn't want to put that burden on you while he was sick. He wanted you to live without fear. Tears warmed my cheeks, falling silently. Gordon, my Gordon. He had carried this weight all alone, for me, but that wasn't the end. Mr. Fallon lifted another tab, this one black. And then there's the property. Louise jumped. What property? Her voice was raw, scratchy, frantic. Mr. And Fallon ignored her and turned the binder around so I could see a glossy photograph tucked into the page pocket. My breath hitched. It was beautiful. A sprawling white two-story house with tall columns, black shutters, and soft lantern lights glowing on the porch. A long driveway, a circular fountain. The kind of place rich families fight over for generations. Nathan squinted. "What house is that?" Mr. Fallon answered calmly. "That is the Calder estate." The family blinked in confusion. "What estate?" Charles barked. "We don't have an estate." "You didn't," Mr. Fallon corrected, "but Gordon bought one." The room exploded. "That's impossible." "Where? When? Why didn't he tell us?" Mr. Fallon lifted a hand. "It's located in Willow Creek, a 25-acre property, appraised last year at," he checked the page, $3.6 million. The wind outside seemed to freeze midair. My lungs forgot to work. Willow Creek? $3.6 million? A whole estate. For who? I whispered. "For you," Mr. Fallon answered. I pressed my fingers to my lips, stunned into stillness. The family stared at me as though I were a thief, caught holding gold she never earned. "He would never give her something like that," Louise screamed. "She manipulated him." The lawyer shot her a lethal glance. "Mrs. Louise," he said, "I strongly advise you to stop accusing your brother's wife, especially given your own actions." Louise shrank back, trembling. My heart throbbed in my ears, but Mr. Fallon wasn't finished. "There's one final thing your husband left," he said, voice dropping to a solemn hush. He closed the binder gently, like placing a newborn into a crib. "This one may be difficult to hear." My breath trembled. "What is it?" He stepped closer. His expression softened. As his illness worsened, Gordon realized he didn't trust anyone but you. He saw how his family treated you. He heard the rumors. He felt the coldness. My shoulders pulled inward. I had felt it too, but I thought Gordon hadn't noticed. Mr. Fallon continued. 2 weeks before he passed, he recorded a second letter. Sable paled. Nathan stiffened. Louise whispered, No, he wouldn't." The lawyer nodded. "Yes, he recorded it on video." My heart slammed against my ribs. Video? Gordon speaking from beyond the grave? The lawyer reached into his leather bag and removed a USB drive. He held it delicately between his fingers. "This contains his final recorded message." A sound rose from the family, something between a gasp and a moan. Nathan stepped forward, eyes wide and troubled. Why didn't he show us?" "He didn't trust you," Sable snapped, her bitterness aimed at me. He only trusted her, but her attempt at blame fell flat. The truth was shining too brightly now. The lawyer nodded to Mr. Fallon. "Let's play it." My heart dropped. "Now? In front of them?" Mr. Fallon's gaze was steady. His instructions were clear. The family clustered together, forming a wall of nervous shadows. Their heels clicked against the tile as they shifted, gripping each other's arms for balance. Lights dimmed as the lawyer plugged the USB into a small projector connected to his laptop. The bulb flickered, the screen glowed, and then there he was. Gordon's face appeared, frail, thinner than I remembered, but his eyes were still full of something warm and familiar. He sat in his favorite armchair, the old burgundy one by the window. Sunlight streamed behind him, bathing him in a soft halo. My hand flew to my mouth again. "Oh, Gordon," I whispered. His recorded self offered a faint smile, his lips trembling with effort. "If this video is being played," he began, voice weak but steady, "then I have left this world, and my wife is sitting in pain. My darling, if you can hear me, please know, I am right beside you." My heart shattered into 100 trembling pieces. The family shifted uneasily. On the screen, Gordon exhaled with difficulty. "I asked for this to be shown because I knew my family." He closed his eyes briefly. "Would show their true colors at my funeral." Every head jerked toward him like he'd slapped them. Louise gasped. Charles swore under his breath. Sable stared at the floor, and Gordon continued, "I've watched them mistreat you. I've watched them judge you. I've watched them accuse you of things you never did." My chin quivered uncontrollably. He turned his head slightly, as if speaking directly to me. "You were my strength, my comfort, my nurse, my friend, my only constant, and they will never understand what you carried for me behind closed doors." Tears streamed down my cheeks, then his tone hardened, the softness burned away. "My family was waiting for me to die." The room froze solid. Nathan stumbled back into a chair. Sable's hand shot to her chest. Louise let out a strangled cry. Gordon continued, "Some of you made decisions about my money while I was alive. Some of you stole from me. Some of you lied about my wife. But all of you forgot that my love for her was stronger than anything you could take." Silence. A thick, suffocating silence. Gordon leaned forward in the video. His voice dropped to a whisper. "And so, I made a choice." The room held its breath. "I left everything to her. The air shattered. Louise screamed. Sable cursed. Charles staggered. Nathan's face flushed with shock. But Gordon wasn't finished. "Including the estate," he added. "Including every account. Including the evidence of what you did to destroy your own inheritance." The video crackled slightly. Gordon's face softened again, gentle, tired, full of love. "My darling, I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer. But I hope this gives you the life you deserve. Live in peace, live in joy, and don't you dare live in fear of them." His eyes softened. "And to my family, I hope this teaches you something. I truly do." The screen went black. A single sob echoed through the hall. It wasn't mine. It was Nathan's. The lawyer closed his laptop. Silence hung in the air like smoke. Sable swayed, gripping a pew. Louise hunched over, sobbing hysterically. Charles stared blankly, his face ghost white. And Nathan turned to me, eyes shining with tears. "Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. I didn't know any of it, I swear." I clutched my shawl tighter. I wasn't ready to speak. Not yet. Not after all this storm. Mr. Fallon cleared his throat. "There is only one more thing to say." The family lifted their tear-streaked faces. "Everything, every dollar, every property, now belongs entirely to Mrs. Calder, effective immediately." Louise let out a broken wail. Sable covered her face. Nathan froze. And me? For the first time that day, I breathed. Just one small breath, but it felt like the first breath of a woman being born again. For a long moment, no one moved. The projector's faint hum was the only sound in the room, a ghostly echo of Gordon's final words, drifting through the air like incense after a long prayer. "Everything belongs to her." The sentence clung to the walls, to their clothes, to their faces, pale, shocked, twisted in disbelief. I sat there, small in my thin shawl, hands trembling in my lap, trying to breathe through the weight of that revelation. I felt like an old oak tree that had survived a storm no one expected me to withstand. Nathan stepped toward me first. His shoes tapped the polished tiles softly, timidly, like a child approaching a wounded animal. "Mom," he whispered. His voice was raw, cracked down the middle, fragile as a dying flame. "I didn't know," he said again. "I swear to you on my kids, I didn't know any of this." His eyes glistened with a boyish guilt that punched straight through my ribs. Nathan wasn't cruel. He was weak. Too weak to stand against the tide of his family's poison, too weak to defend me, too weak to see the truth behind their sweetened venom. But I didn't blame him. Not anymore. Weakness was a sickness in that family, a generational disease, and Gordon had tried to cure it with truth. Yet truth always arrives bleeding. I lifted my hand slowly, my fingers trembling, and placed it gently against Nathan's cheek. His skin felt warm, damp with tears. "It's all right," I whispered. But my voice, it was steady. Firmer than I expected. Perhaps firmer than he deserved. He leaned into my palm, shoulders shaking. "I'm so sorry," he breathed, "for all the times I didn't defend you, for the things they said, for not knowing." I nodded faintly, though his apology could not undo the years of quiet harm. Behind him, Louise's sobbing turned desperate, ragged, broken sobs cutting through the stillness. "I didn't steal," she cried. I didn't mean to." Charles stepped away from her as though she were a stain spreading across the floor. "Louise," he said coldly, "you told us he was giving you loans. You said he volunteered that money." I turned my head slowly toward them. Louise looked like a woman unraveling. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks like black rain. Her gloved fingers gripped the pew so hard the lace tore. She shook her head over and over, refusing the truth even as it cornered her like a wild animal. You all depended on me," she choked. "When he started turning away, I thought she put ideas in his head." Her glare snapped to me with a venom that still stung, even after Gordon's video. "It was always her," Louise spat. "Always her ruining everything." I stiffened, but before I could speak, Mr. Fallon stepped between us. "Mrs. Louise," he said sharply, "your brother's financial records prove everything. Every unauthorized withdrawal, every forged signature, every transfer to your so-called emergency fund. You should be thinking about legal counsel, not pointing fingers." She collapsed into the pew, wailing. The sound of it echoed like a siren through the hall. Sable, arms crossed tightly around herself, turned to Charles. "So," she snapped, "you lied too. You said Gordon had nothing left. You said he mismanaged everything." Charles bristled. "That's what she told me," he said, pointing at Louise. Louise screamed through tears. "I didn't know he kept records." My heart squeezed. Gordon always kept records. He recorded every small thing, every number, every detail, quietly, humbly, because he knew his family better than they knew themselves. Nathan looked ill, gripping the back of a chair for support. I thought we'd get something," he said in a small, stunned voice. "Not because of greed, Mom, but because Dad always said he'd help us all get a better future." I touched his hand gently. "He did," I said softly. "Just not in the way you expected." Sable snapped her head toward me. "Oh, don't act like a saint," she hissed. "You knew exactly what you were doing. Old women always pretend to be helpless, but then, when we least expect it—" Mr. Fallon cut her off sharply. "Mrs. Sable, that's enough." His tone was colder than winter wind. "You and your husband contributed to the rumors against Mrs. Calder. You also pressured Gordon for money he refused to give. His notes clearly state you two made several attempts to access his trust." Sable's face drained of color. "What, notes?" Mr. Fallon nodded. "And recordings." She stumbled backward as though struck. Nathan jerked his head toward her. "Recordings? What recordings?" Her silence was the answer. Louise gasped. They lied too." Chaos erupted, shouts, accusations, denials, a river of poison flowing openly in front of the altar. Families don't break in silence. They shatter loudly, like pottery dropped from a great height. But I stayed seated, steady, quiet, watching them unravel with the calmness of a woman who had survived too many storms to tremble at thunder. Mr. Fallon raised his voice sharply. "Enough!" The room fell silent. He stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the fractured family. "There is one last thing Gordon instructed me to do." Louise lifted her swollen face. "What now?" she spat. Mr. Fallon raised a single envelope, different from the others. It was sealed with red wax, pressed with Gordon's initials. He walked toward me. My breath trembled. "It is addressed to you," he said softly, "and only you." The family erupted. "No fair. She shouldn't get private letters. She's hiding something." But Mr. Fallon ignored every protest. He placed the envelope gently in my hands. The wax seal gleamed like a drop of blood. My fingers trembled against it, warm from the heat of my palm, fragile like old memories. I didn't open it, not yet. I couldn't. Even touching it felt like touching the last flicker of my husband's soul. The lawyer spoke again. "This is where our legal obligations conclude. What you choose to do next is entirely your decision." Louise staggered to her feet. "Decision? She better give us something. We're his family. She can't just take it all." I turned my head slowly. My eyes met hers. For the first time, she saw something she had never seen in me before. Strength. Not loud strength, not vengeful strength. Quiet, unshakable strength. "Louise," I said softly, "Gordon gave you chances. Many of them. More than I ever understood." She shook, tears dripping from her chin. "But you chose lies. You chose stealing. And now, you're living the consequences." Her face twisted with rage. "You think you're better than us." I shook my head gently. "No, I just loved him better." She stumbled backward, crushed by the truth she had never wanted to face. Sable scoffed loudly. "And what, now you think you're some queen?" I lifted my chin. "I'm a widow," I whispered. "A tired woman who gave her whole life to a man who finally chose to protect me in death." My voice shook with emotion. "And I will honor his decision." The room went quiet. Nathan wiped his face. "Mom, what happens now?" I glanced at the sealed letter, the one written just for me. "What happens now?" I inhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment settle into my bones like warm light. "I need to read his last words," I murmured. "And then, I'll decide." The lawyer nodded. Mr. Fallon closed the binder. Louise sank into a pew, defeated. Charles stormed toward the exit. Sable followed, muttering curses under her breath. Nathan stood alone in the aisle, torn between loyalty to me and fear of his unraveling family. And me? I clutched Gordon's final letter to my heart. The wax seal warmed under my palm, as though whispering, "Open me. I am the truth you waited for." But not here. Not in front of those who twisted his final days. No. I rose slowly, shawl fluttering with my movement, and stepped toward the church door. For the first time all day, I walked without trembling. The cold afternoon wind brushed against my cheeks as I stepped out of the church hall. Gordon's sealed letter held tightly to my chest. Somewhere above the clouds, the sun tried to break through, but only a thin sliver of gold managed to peek down. Warm, gentle, fleeting. I stood on the front steps for a moment, breathing in the damp scent of rain-soaked earth. My dress clung to my legs, heavy with sorrow and something else I couldn't yet name. Strength, maybe, or the beginning of it. Nathan trailed behind me hesitantly, his footsteps slower, uncertain, as though he didn't know whether he was allowed to follow me anymore. "Mom," he whispered, voice cracking, "please wait!" I turned to him. His eyes were red, the way they had been when he was a boy who dropped his ice cream on a hot day. He swallowed hard. "What do I do?" he asked quietly. "How do I fix this?" The question pierced me, because it wasn't mine to answer. "You don't fix it," I murmured. "You learn from it." Nathan lowered his head. Shame pooled across his features like spilled ink. "I didn't defend you," he whispered. "I heard some of the rumors, and I didn't fight them hard enough. I didn't want to cause trouble." A small, sad smile formed on my lips. "You were trying to keep your family together," I said softly. "But sometimes, trying to hold everything together breaks the wrong things." He flinched as if the words were too true, too sharp. "I want to make it right now," he said. "Just tell me how." I reached out and gently touched his cheek. "Be a better man to your children than you were to me," I whispered. "That's how you make it right." His breath shuddered, tears slipped down, and for the first time that day, I walked away from him without looking back. The sky had darkened by the time I reached my car. Clouds rolled above like bruises, heavy and swollen with unfallen rain. My hands shook as I unlocked the door and slid inside. The interior smelled like old leather and lavender air freshener, the last one Gordon bought before his health declined. For a moment, I rested my forehead against the steering wheel, letting the silence wash over me. Then I lifted the envelope into my lap. The wax seal, deep red, smooth, bearing Gordon's initials, seemed almost warm under my fingertips, like it had its own heartbeat. My own heart thudded painfully. I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly, edges perfectly aligned. Gordon's handwriting, shaky but familiar, stretched across it in soft curves. My throat tightened as I unfolded it. "My dearest Elaine, if you are reading this, then the world has already taken me away from you. I pray you are sitting somewhere safe, somewhere peaceful, because what I am about to tell you is not easy." I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. His letters always began with warmth, but this one felt heavier, like each word carried a piece of his fading breath. "I kept a secret from you. Not a betrayal, not a mistake, but a truth I was too afraid to share while I lived." I blinked, the paper blurring. "You think my family resented you because of how close we were? But the truth goes deeper than their cruelty." My pulse hammered. "They blamed you for my illness because that was easier than admitting the truth. I got sick defending you." A shock ran up my spine. I reread the line, then again. "What? Defending me?" The wind outside howled against the car windows as though urging me to keep reading. 2 years ago, before my diagnosis, I confronted Louise. I confronted Charles. I confronted Sable. I asked them to stop speaking about you in ways no one should speak about a woman who has given nothing but love. Tears welled in my eyes. They said you were a burden. They said I could do better. They said you were weak, clingy, controlling, that I should think my future before it was too late. My breath went shallow, tight. "I defended you," I shouted. I slammed my hand on the table so hard the doctor told me later it worsened my chest condition. My fingers pressed against my heart, trembling. I walked out of that confrontation shaking with rage and collapsed that same night. The hospital said the stress triggered the first signs of my illness. My heart cracked open. A sob escaped me, quiet, broken. Gordon, my gentle Gordon, had gotten sick because he protected me? I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to carry that pain. I didn't want you blaming yourself. You were always my peace, Elaine, my soft place to fall. They were my storm, and I would choose you, over and over, even if it cost me years of life. The tears came faster now, dripping onto the paper in small, dark blotches. I could almost hear his voice in the trembling strokes of ink. That day, I realized something. My family would never love you the way I did, so I made plans, quiet ones, powerful ones, plans that would protect you long after my last breath. My hands shook violently. I knew they would come for you the moment I died. I knew they would blame you again. They always blamed the easiest person, so I used the only weapon I had left, the truth. My chest felt heavy, my lungs trembling. I left them nothing so they would be forced to face who they became, and I left you everything because I know who you always were. I covered my mouth, sobbing into my palm. But that is not the only reason. I froze. Another reason? There is something you still do not know about me. Something I learned 6 months before my death. The ink grew shakier. Nathan is not my only child. My breath vanished. Gone. My fingers went numb, gripping the paper too tightly. No, no, no. I reread the line again and again. Before I met you, Elaine, I made a mistake in my youth. A woman I once cared for told me she was pregnant. Then she disappeared. I spent decades searching, but I never found her or the child. But 6 months ago, someone found me. My vision blurred. A young woman wrote to me. Her name is Maria. She said her mother told her the truth on her deathbed. And Elaine, she is mine. I gasped. My whole body pulled inward, stunned, breathless, trembling. I met her once. She looks like me in my youth, but her heart, her gentle nature, reminded me of you. That's how I knew she was my blood. I pressed the letter to my chest, rocking gently as the grief shifted into something deeper. Confusion, betrayal, tenderness, fear. She did not want money. She did not want anything from me. All she wanted was to meet you. A sob tore from my throat. She asked me not to tell you until I could explain it properly in person, but time ran out, and I am so sorry. The words swam through a blur of tears. I left funds aside for her in a separate trust. She knows you will be the executor of that trust. She promised to wait until you were ready, and I believe you will know when the moment comes. A cold wave rolled over my skin. Another child, another life, a piece of Gordon's heart I had never known. The letter's final lines trembled. Please don't hate me for this. I wanted to tell you, but every day I tried, your kindness reminded me how much the truth would hurt you. Forgive me, my love. The ink of the last sentence was smudged, as if his hand shook while writing. From the day I met you until the day I closed my eyes, you were my home. The page slipped from my fingers. A soft cry escaped me, raw and trembling. Inside that small, dim car, it felt like someone had cracked my ribs open and set my heart out in the cold. Another daughter, a hidden child, a secret waiting to step into my life when everything else had just fallen apart. And now, I was the one who had to decide. I wiped my tears, inhaling shakily. Outside, the rain finally stopped. A soft golden light stretched across the sky, like Gordon reaching down, brushing his fingers against my cheek. For a long moment, I held the letter to my heart. Then I whispered into the fading storm, I forgive you, Gordon, but what you've left me with is a whole new war, because his family wasn't my only battle anymore. Now, I had an inheritance to protect, a daughter to meet, and a reckoning to prepare, quietly, strategically, in the way only a grandmother who has survived too much can. I don't remember driving home, not the turns, not the streetlights, not the gentle sway of trees bowing under the leftover rain. My hands moved on their own, quiet, steady, even as my heart stumbled like a child learning to walk again. Gordon's letter rested on the passenger seat, the paper still warm from where I'd clutched it too tightly. Another daughter, a hidden past, a future I never expected, and a family now trembling under the weight of truth. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the driveway I now legally owned alone, the sky had shifted into evening gold. The house looked the same, yet not. Shadows stretched long across the lawn, as if the home itself held its breath, waiting to see who I was now. I stepped out slowly, feeling the gravel under my shoes, feeling the heaviness in my bones. My shawl fluttered in the cool breeze, brushing against my cheek like a reassuring hand. Inside the house, everything was still. Quiet. Too quiet. Then, soft footsteps. Nathan appeared in the hallway, his shoulders slumped, his tie undone. His eyes were red, swollen, like he'd spent the whole afternoon crying. "Mom," he whispered. There was fear in his voice, and shame, and something else, something hopeful. "I told them all to leave," he said shakily. "I didn't want them waiting outside to attack you again. I wanted you to walk in peacefully." The words softened something inside me. I nodded gently. He swallowed. "What was in the letter, the private one?" I looked at him long and hard. A grown man. My son. Gordon's boy, not by blood alone, but by the way he softened when he hurt, by the way his voice quivered when he cared. "Not tonight," I murmured. "Let me hold it a little longer, Nathan." He nodded, understanding more than I said. "Okay." He lingered a moment, then whispered, "I love you, Mom." My heart tightened. "I love you too, son." He left. Quietly. Carefully. As if afraid a loud sound might shatter me. But he didn't know I wasn't glass anymore. I was turning into steel. That night, I sat at the dining table, the one Gordon and I ate dinner at for years, and laid out everything. The binder, the letter, Gordon's final video still glowing in my mind, and the truth of a daughter I had never met. Candles flickered gently beside me, their warm flames dancing across the tablecloth like small spirits whispering encouragement. Gordon had trusted me with everything, his wealth, his secrets, his past, his peace. And now, it was time I honored him not with tears, but with action. I picked up the binder first, cold, heavy, filled with power his family never imagined I possessed. Then I reached for my phone. My fingers hesitated only once before typing into the search bar, Maria _______________ contact. Her last name trembled in my memory from Gordon's letter. A few seconds later, a profile appeared, a young woman with soft brown curls, bright eyes, and a smile so familiar it knocked the breath from my lungs. She looked like Gordon, but she carried something gentle around her edges. Just like he said, like me. My hand pressed against my chest as tears slid silently down my cheeks. A small contact info link blinked under her picture. I clicked it, took a shaky breath, and wrote, "Hello, Maria. My name is Elaine. I believe we need to talk." I stared at the message, simple, fragile, honest, before pressing send. My heart thudded so loudly the candles flickered. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't bitterness. It was connection. A bridge between heartbreak and something new. I wiped my tears slowly, then stood. It was time for part 2. The next morning, I dressed in the soft lavender dress Gordon always loved. The weather was warm, sunlight spilling generously through the windows. The house finally felt alive again, a place of peace instead of fear. At 9 a.m., a knock echoed through the halls, sharp, fast, impatient. I knew who it was. I opened the door. Louise stood there, red-eyed, disheveled, desperation pouring from every corner of her face. Behind her, Charles glared, arms crossed tightly. Sable hovered near the gate, pretending not to care but unable to leave. "Elaine," Louise whispered, trembling, "please, you have to understand. I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared. I didn't mean to steal. I didn't mean to hurt Gordon." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt you." For a moment, I just stared at her. At the woman who called me weak, who whispered poison behind my back, who tried to turn my husband's final years into confusion and doubt, who blamed me for pain I never caused. A breeze carried the scent of fresh magnolia blossoms from the tree Gordon planted years ago. The petals swayed gently, reminding me of all the quiet mornings I spent praying for peace in this family. Peace Gordon now bought with the truth. I took a slow breath. "Louise," I said softly, "there comes a day when every person must carry the weight of their choices." She sobbed, knees shaking. "Please, I have nothing left. You can't do this to me." I tilted my head. "You did this to yourself," I wanted to say, but grandma revenge is never loud. It's deliberate, it's calm, it's dignified. "I'm not taking anything from you," I said gently. "Your actions did that," she whimpered, "but I will not punish you further. Gordon already gave you your consequence." Her eyes shot up. You're not pressing charges?" I shook my head. "No? Because revenge isn't real when it's cruel. It's real when it's fair." And Louise had already lost everything she valued, her inheritance, her dignity, her family's trust. That was enough. Louise collapsed into Charles's arms, sobbing. He guided her away, speechless. Sable approached next, chin lifted high to hide her trembling. She didn't apologize. Of course she didn't. "Just so we're clear," she snapped, "I think this whole thing is ridiculous. You played the victim for years, and now you're acting like some sort of saint." I lifted a gentle hand. She froze. "Sable," I whispered, letting my voice turn soft and sharp at the same time. "This house has never belonged to you. And neither does my peace." She blinked. Slowly, I stepped closer. "My revenge," I whispered, "is simply this. I'm going to live happily. I'm going to breathe easily. I'm going to enjoy every cent my husband left me. In peace you can never disturb again." Her mouth fell open. And that was the end of her cruelty, because some truths cut deeper than screams. Later that afternoon, as sunlight warmed the porch, my phone buzzed. A new message from Maria. My heart fluttered painfully as I opened it. "Elaine, I've been waiting for your message. I would love to meet you." Warm tears slid down my cheeks, not from pain this time, but a soft ache of hope. I typed back with trembling fingers. "Tomorrow, at Willow Creek. Let's start our story the way Gordon hoped we would. When I hit send, a breeze brushed through the magnolia tree, scattering petals across the walkway. The world felt new, uncertain, yes, but beautifully, tenderly new. I looked toward the sky, a smile tugging at my lips. "Gordon," I whispered, "I'm going to be all right, and I'm finally going to take the life you wanted for me." The house behind me glowed in the warm afternoon light, peaceful at last. The inheritance was mine, the truth was mine, the strength was finally mine. And tomorrow, I would meet the daughter he left behind, not as a broken widow, but as a woman reborn. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this story touched you even a little, leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe for more. Your support keeps these stories alive.